Good.
Here's the thing that people need to understand, and I'm just going to be real. And I'm a strength coach, and I think it matters. I know this. I would not be standing here if it wasn't for my high school strength conditioning program, because I wasn't good enough to get where I needed to go to school for free, to be here talking to you today without the weight room.
You went to Wake Forest.
But just remember this. Every sport we watch on TV was being played before anybody lifted weights. So let's just remember, when we get into all this stuff about my guys don't lift, I coached two of the greatest football players in the NFL, and I actually coached them both. One I got to coach in the pros and college, and one I coached in college. Not the greatest lifters. Not, and I'm being generous when I say that.
Meaning what? Their technique wasn't the best?
Meaning that they didn't like lifting weights.
Gotcha.
And maybe they came and maybe they didn't. And they're going to the Hall of Fame in their sport as two of the greatest that ever did it. So at the end of the day is, what can we do to at least find a way that there's some type of value? And what that value may be, it may look different than the way I need to train, to the way you need to train, Zach, to the way Coach Collodi needs to train. But there is some ways to build that experience. It has to start with basics, like we were talking about. You have to have fundamentals. You know, we got a guy, hey, we're going to go do squats today. Kid can't do a body weight squat, right? Kid can't do a plank. Kid can't do an iso.
Block zero.
And again, I mean, I'm not saying I'm anti-lifting. I'm anti-preparing them to lift. Mm-hmm. I mean, you can't ask a kid to get under a bench press. And I know some people say, well, that's why you do dumbbells. I want a kid to be able to do a push-up. Because if they can't do a push-up and they can't control their own weight, I don't care how much external load we give them. And again, I'm not saying I'm not going to do this and not going to do that, but there's just certain ways of how I believe long-term athletic development looks in strength training than others. And I'm not saying they're wrong. If they can provide methodologies and their kids look safe, I'm okay with that. But I mean, for me, I know when I'm dealing with athletes, I'm not in a rush, because if they're expedient and they excel at their sport, no matter what I do is a benefit. It doesn't matter if they lift a weight, do a push-up, or swing from a rope. Anything that I do general physical fitness-wise is going to enhance their abilities because they've never been exposed to it.
Yes.
So, and we've all know the United States is backwards. It's skill development, skill development, skill development. Oh, and maybe the kid knows how to gallop. Maybe he knows what. Half these kids can't skip, but yet they're, top flight elite juniors in their sport.
As much as people hate on the Russians and, what the Soviets did and the drugs, I always say, but you know what? They were amazing at developing a system from the youth level.
But if you study them, what did they all do? They all got thrown into a pot. And as they looked at their basic skills, then they started to differentiate where they're, and then they look at the parents' genetics, where do they see these people flowing? But it's even like, the Asian people that wake up every day and do Tai Chi and they do exercise. I just saw one in class. They're doing exercises in their class, sitting at their seat. Their teachers
the music thing.
Throwing it around. I mean, again, I'm not saying anybody's right or wrong. I'm just saying that we just got to have an open mind and try to figure out what's the best practices for what's going on today. Just getting them out of their chairs and making them put their phones in their desk for an hour. And just teaching them to walk upright, looking up, not down.
Well, if we look just, looking behind you with kettlebells, we got the old dumbbells. I think to myself, how we see less of those things, these tools in gyms. I use a ton of dumbbells and kettlebells with our athletes. I just see we see now sprint, jump, and barbell lifts. Like they don't.
Well, I mean, the sprint.
Maybe
jump,
we're not seeing it because it's not being filmed.
Well, like we were talking about too, as I see in my role now, most weight rooms are rack based. Yep. So there's not a lot of accessory pieces. So what does that mean? What are you going to do? You're going to do rack based exercise, and then let's face it, what's simple? Go out inside, sprint and jump. And that's lifting weight, and that's strength training too. Like
sprinting, I look at as strength training.
There's no one that's not going to say that. If you're saying that's not part of strength training, I think that's wrong. Like I knew we had a particular athlete that I coached the NFL that his main